Welcome, everybody, again to a
Yes.
new episode to That's Effing Weird. Tonight, we have Lily, I believe, bringing a new topic.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
first off, we need to introduce all of our hosts. First off, I am Clark, aka the Reverend Michael Snakebite. And who do we have here together?
Roll.
That was perfect, you guys. That's great.
You guys are nailing it. You guys are hitting it out of the park. Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's like,
keep going, guys. We're almost there.
Yeah. Let's go.
everybody is so shocked that Clark did the intro that nobody knows what to do.
Stunned. I'm speechless. Uh-oh.
Look at that. Alex, I scared Alex.
Damn.
No.
I didn't realize.
All right, let's do this again.
Every time.
Yep.
I don't know what to say. They're intimidated by my masculinity, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at that shirt. Hey, welcome
he's back.
Yeah, I guess Craig doesn't like me and kicked me from the server. I don't
You
know.
were booted out?
Yeah.
What? Rude.
I don't know.
Oh, that's incredibly rude.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Is everyone else good?
Yes.
Yes.
We can do that again.
Does anyone else want to do the intro?
I did it already.
Oh, you
want
did
me
the
to-
intro?
Yes.
Yes, I did. Oh my god.
You
Yeah,
didn't hear any of that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we did the intro. Yeah. I was just playing around with you guys. Yeah, we're good. Let's keep talking. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lily. I'm well hydrated tonight, and also I have quite the story.
Yep.
So I hope you're ready. Again, I hope you have a piece of paper and a pen. There will be a test at the end of the episode. So keep notes. I know it's a convoluted story. There's a lot of names, a lot of French names, but feel free to just ask me a question if I'm just getting a little lost in the weeds there. I'll try to keep it classy. The case I'm about to talk to you about tonight happens about 20 years ago in France, just a little plot of land in the southwest of France. And this thing made the news so much that 20 years ago, you can find, 20 years after the fact, so now you can find articles and YouTube videos, documentaries, even in English, talking about what happened to this family. It's about as close to a cult as you can get. It's very interesting. I'm fascinated by cults, so I try to read a lot about it. I don't know everything, of course, but yeah, just feel free to stop me anytime and we can chat about it.
I think the thing about cults too is that it's very easy to get stuck in or not stuck, but get into that rabbit hole, and it'll just take you in all sorts of weird directions. I think the last one that we did was with you, Ro, and we had talked about this a little bit earlier before the show. Is just that there's so much information, and that there's so many places, times, people, and events that happen. And even the one that you had done with us, Clark, when you first came onto the show with the Branch Davidians, there's so much. So for you as the audience member, I'm sure we're probably not going to cover everything.
No.
But, just I would look into it. Almost like what Lily was saying, take some notes. If you have questions, just let us know. We'll try to answer them the best that we can.
Absolutely. And I'll reference some Sourcepedia that you can look up on your trusty browser and find out more about this story. It's fascinating. I know it can be a little intimidating because it's in a different language, but there's a lot of material translated in English as well. So I think my favorite source that I used for this research is OKI video series on this family. And it's a 5-parter. I think total it may be 1 hour. It's very easy to listen to. So check it out. All right, let us get started. So today I'm going to talk about a case that surrounds a character, a man called Thierry Tilly. So I may refer to him as Thierry or as Tilly. And you could say that it's a caution tale about a con artist weaving his lies and manipulation techniques until an entire aristocratic family from France just gets manipulated into losing their entire fortune. At the end of the episode, we'll just tally up how much they've lost, and it's ridiculous. He'll cut them off from their support system, from their community, and he will also take their grasp of reality. He's just a very powerful man. His operation was mostly one man himself, but he has gotten the help of a few others that either have been victims of his or simply trying to make a quick buck. So he's very skilled at what he does.
Real quick, Lily, I'm sure you're going to get into this.
Yes.
How many people were a part of it? Was it just this one family, or was it? Okay, so it wasn't like
one
a
family.
group of people. Okay.
No.
Okay.
It is one family and their spouse, the kids. It spans across 3 generations. So there's the matriarch, and then there's the children and their children. So total, it's a family with I think 11 members, just about.
Okay.
And they are part of the nobility, so they used to live in a castle. They just had a lot of money that was taken away from them in the span of 10 years. It's incredible the damage that he's done in such a short amount of time. So the story is first brought to the attention of the general population by an article from Le Monde. You may have heard of this publication before. And it was titled The Mystery of Montflanquin. Montflanquin is the name of the city, the region of where the story takes place. Neighbors were telling a story about a known family of aristocrats, seemingly self-isolating after cutting all their ties with the community, with their family, just everything. They completely closed up from the outside. And as we'll see more in just a few minutes, they used to be very much open towards the community. They held philanthropic events. They just invited people inside of their castle. And really, they weren't flaunting their money at all because they didn't have much, all things considered. But they were trying to give back and not be so separated. So as we'll see, this changes quickly.
I almost sorry to cut you off, Lily,
No,
but I almost feel like there has to be. I'm sure there is somewhere where there's like the like identifiers of like being in a cult or kind of like that, because with you saying like they started getting isolated and like getting away from people that they love, and like friends and family. I feel like that was a lot with like almost like the Branch Davidians, the one that Clark had covered, where it's like they're in their own little compound doing their own little thing. Same with the Anthill cult that Ro had covered, where it's this, cult in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And I wonder if that's just part of being a cult. Like even the Jonestown, like they moved to an entire different country in the jungle, just isolated. And I think that has to be, like I said, part of like the identifier of a cult, that isolation from everyone else. So I think that's something that you have to, watch out for.
Yes. I've taken some notes throughout the story where I try to point out some of the boxes that usually we check when talking about a cult. You may have heard the name Steve Hassan, Dr. Steve Hassan, thrown around. He's an expert in the Western world about cults and just cult tactics. He has a book that's very thorough, walks you through pretty much how to deprogram someone, how to recognize the signs. And that is what I based my notes on when I'm like, okay, this is kind of like we're getting more into the culty. It's not just a con anymore, it's a cult. I think one of the only traits that doesn't quite qualify as cult is they're not trying to recruit anyone. They're very much turned towards themselves, and they'll go as far as to shun people from the family and just tighten the grip around the few members that were programmed so hard and so deeply with Thierry Tilly.
So one of the so what you're saying is one of the identifiers is like recruiting. That's like an identifier of like a cult is the recruiting aspect.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
It's not, of course, it's not 100% of the cult do that, but it's a trait that some have. They'll just, it can be just passing along the message or telling people the truth or opening their eyes about this or that. It's just getting more recruits in. Sometimes it's just to get more funds in, or it's just putting into the ego of the cult leader. But it's one of the characteristics of cults.
I'm sorry, but I also think that it works the other way also. While they are recruiting more folks, they also hold on to the people. They don't allow anyone to leave.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And those who are shunned are very just, they're talked down to like they're trash, like they're less than. It's incredible.
That's what I was going to
Or you're dead.
I was going to interject and say isolation, like isolationism is a big part of that. Like if you are somebody who is already on the outside and don't feel like they have anyone to connect to, so isolationism, and then once you're in that, they isolate you from the outside world.
And it's so striking that nowadays we can identify, okay, this is exactly when he tried to do this. This is exactly when he went on to this step. And it'll be very easy to identify as the story unfolds. It's almost textbook, honestly. Mm-hmm. So let's start right at the beginning. The story starts right after the start of the century. This is really when it gets a little weird. And it will last for almost a decade, as I said. Really, the conclusion is right before 2009, 2010. This is when finally it stopped, this craziness. They will progressively fall into Thierry Tilly's trap. And he's very unassuming. He's not particularly conventionally attractive. He's rather small, rather gaunt. He just has this charisma about himself, and he's really gifted. He can talk. He can convince people. He can persuade them. That's where his strength lies. Beyond the family that we're about to talk about, he has conned others as well out of tens of thousands of dollars or euros, I guess. So first, let's introduce the family. They're called the De Vedrine, in two words, so D-E-N Vedrine. And they're a family of aristocrats, as I said before. And their lineage can be traced all the way back to the 17th century. So they're quite old, and in history, they've been just notable. Not they were particularly blessed with money, but they were landlords. So they just owned a lot of land in that part of France. So they're an old Protestant family and landowners. And they're established in the southwest of France. So if you can see the hexagon, a picture of France, and just the south edge in that little corner here. It would be opposite on the camera, duh. So the region they're in, if we have francophones listening to this show, is the Lot-et-Garonne. So that's where they are. And it's a spot right in the middle of Bordeaux and Toulouse. It's just this little speck of beautiful land and just hills, and it's gorgeous. Look it up on YouTube. this story takes place in this beautiful village, but it will take us in France and also to England. So we're going abroad. It's gonna be fun. The de Vidrine were quite a tight-knit family at first. There's the matriarch, that's Guillemette, and I will reintroduce them as the story continues, because I know with foreign names it's not as easy to follow. And usually they were just gathering with the matriarch during the summers to their chateau. Of course, it's a chateau. Chateau Martel, which would be just based on a hill, beautiful 50 acres, just medieval beautifulness. It's incredible. If you look it up on YouTube, if you look up the city itself, which is Montflanquin, or the castle, which is Chateau Martel, it's beautiful. It's well preserved. It's just a quaint little piece of deliciousness. And as I said, they would gather every summer and often put up events towards the community, or they would invite people in. So they weren't really the reclusive nobility that's just looking down on people. That wasn't really their style. They were more open to putting on shows with kids and just inviting the community in and meddling with the people around and the village around them. Now we'll come back to that afterwards with hindsight. While they weren't flaunting their money much, they were still very much proud of their ancestry and their lineage. So being a de Vidrine would be quite the what's the word I'm looking for? You're special. If you're part of the family, you're special. You're part of the nobility. I can't find the word I'm looking for. So mostly the matriarch was quite.
Can I ask a random
I'm
question?
sorry?
As a history guy, can I ask a random question?
Yes.
So southeast, or we're talking about well,
Southwest of France.
southwest of
Mhm.
France.
Yes.
And you said that was Martel. You said the name Martel, and I was just like
Yes.
curious, Charles Martel, like the hammer.
Yes.
Is that named after him by any
That
chance?
I am
Or
not entirely sure. That I
okay.
am not sure.
I was very
It's
curious. This,
it's not a famous name, but it's pretty common. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was just named after Charles
okay.
Martel, but I am not entirely sure. I have not looked more into the castle itself. But
As a
it's beautiful.
as a
Hmm.
military historian, Charles the Hammer Martel, like it's one
Yes.
of the most badass names ever in
You're
history.
right. Yes.
So I just wondered if that was actually named after him, because that's very close to Andorra and basically Spanish.
Yes.
Well,
Hmm.
basically where he stopped the Moorish
Hmm.
kind of invasions.
It would make sense. It would make sense because it's beautiful land with a big old castle. And even Montflanquin is very well preserved as well. The video that I was watching saying that it was one of the last bastions of medieval, history. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was named after Charles Martel.
Yeah. Okay. I
Mhm.
just wanted to interject there and do my
Yeah, that
nerd.
was a good point. That was a good point. It
I
didn't
will
even
continue.
it didn't make me think twice at all. Going back to the family that resides in this beautiful castle. So the matriarch Guillemette would have 3 children. The eldest would be Philippe, which we will talk about quite often. Guylaine would be the middle child, and finally Charles-Henri. So this would be the 3 key people of the story. Philippe was the oldest, and he was in his 60s when the story unfolds. Still very much aware, still very smart, very quick, and witty. He worked as a civil engineer for an oil company, Shell, and most of his life. So that's what he did. That's what he knew, and he was very good at it. He was living with his partner at the time, Bridget. Guylaine, the middle child, she was married as well to a journalist, which will also have an important role in the story. She had 2 children while running a secretarial school in Paris. And it was quite a ways from where they were at first in Montflanquin, but there's a reason why. We will revisit that. And finally, Charles-Henri, the youngest, was an OBGYN, and he was married as well. He had 3 children, and he was in his early 50s when it started. It's quite the family already, but there are more names coming, and I'll make sure to be very clear when I reference someone. Please do let me know if you don't quite remember who is who. So now let's introduce the con man, Thierry Tilly, after his victims. The man at the center of this story, he was born in 1964 next to the Paris region, so up north. And he went on to study law. He will talk about himself as someone who's very worldly, very knowledgeable, very connected, but we'll see that the reality is not really what he said. He was just a simple man, and he was gifted in manipulating people. When he met Ghislaine, he was married to a model, and he was not very conventionally attractive himself. You can look up pictures, and he's just a dude. He's not much. At 35, when he met Ghislaine.
Hold on, Lily. I love that. He's just a dude.
Yeah, he's just a dude, you know. I'm keeping it real, okay? The filter is off. When he met Ghislaine, he was 35, but again, he presented himself as just someone that's so knowledgeable that is here to fix your problems. He's quick to react, he's quick to act, and he knows a lot of people. So if he doesn't know to fix it himself, he'll find you someone that knows. Very resourceful. Ghislaine de Vedrine was the first to meet Thierry Tilly in 1997. How old were you guys in 1997? I was 1. So quite a bit ago.
Wait, in what? In 97?
I was 6.
6?
Yeah, I was 8.
I was 10.
I turned 13.
Oh no, I'm the youngest. I didn't realize it would go this way.
Yep. I was 12, turning 13. Yeah.
Oh. So yes, Ghislaine, the middle child, she met our con man in 1997, and at the time she was dealing with a lawsuit that she just won, but she initiated it. The thing is, her 2 children went to that school, and unfortunately the funds were mishandled. It wasn't just directed very well, so the thing just fell apart. And they hadn't quite finished their degree. They still have just a few months to go, so they thought if we can keep it going just until summer, then they will have graduated, and after that we can reassess. But that's really the purpose of initiating this lawsuit, is let's keep the school afloat until they're done, and then we can rethink the whole thing. And it wasn't going great. Honestly, the lawsuit was kind of a mess because the funds were not there. And while she was very smart, Ghislaine, she surrounded herself with a legal team that had a particular man in it, a lawyer called, where is his name? Vincent David is his name. He will also be a key person in this story. I will reintroduce him when it's appropriate. So he was helping the legal team, and when at the 11th hour, when everything was just going to the shitter, sorry, but it's true, Vincent David, one of the lawyers, thought, look, I know a man that might be able to fix this. He talks very well, he presents very well, he might be able to help us. And of course, that was Thierry Tilly. That is when she met him, and this is probably the turning point. I think if she had to change something, it would be that. It's to not meet that man, because he will destroy her life, he will ruin her, he will ruin her family, and it's just the beginning of the end from now on. So they won the lawsuit, so the school was saved, and she was appointed as the director of the secretarial school so that her kid could continue on and graduate. It wasn't easy. Again, there were no funds. And she poured as much as she could in the school, but it was still not the best. It was very stressful. And when she started to just have Thierry Tilly in her life, she was just in a moment of stress, transitional period, starting a new job that she's not the most qualified for. It was just very stressful. And I think that's one of the reasons why she fell victim so easily at first. She was just defenseless at that point, so you can't blame her, really. So how it started was, after the lawsuit, she kind of lost contact with Mr. Tilly, and but at some point she needed some services done to the school to make it a little more attractive to new students, since the retention rate was not great, the attendance and the registration was just not it. The technology was outdated, the building itself wasn't in a great shape, so she was just looking for contractors. And once again, the lawyer, Mr. Vincent David, just said, well, look, you know this guy, he has a company, he can do the cleaning, and he does his thing well, so just get in touch and we'll see what happens. She did, and it didn't quite click at that point. Thierry Tilly is pretty unassuming. Again, I don't mean to be mean, but it's true. So it didn't quite mesh the first time. But as he offered his services, and soon he was like, well, I can fix your computers. I know my way around computers, so I can do that. And he was so proactive and so helping, ready, overzealous, that he weaved his way into her life. Soon enough, she gave him a job at the school to be just in the upper management and helping with organizing and making things a little smoother for the school to just really go and be lucrative, because at that point it really hadn't been.
Now, was this something where he actually knew his way around like computers and the things that he was saying, or was he outsourcing and possibly getting other people to come in and help? Was he one of these like people that's like, oh, yo, no, I can help you, but he just gets someone else who actually does know this to come and help? Is it one of those things?
So it really depended on the problem at that point. He did know his way around computers, so whatever she thought they needed done, which was updating and maintenance of the computer, it wasn't that bad that he would need particular expertise, so he was able to do that. But for other problem, he would reach out to his connections and have it fixed, or just find better deals or better contacts. He was just that connected and just knew the right people at the right time. And with the little bit that he knew, he just made it work. And it really made a big impact for Guylaine.
I will say too that I will agree with you, Lily, on this. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy, but he looks like he looks kind of like Bill Gates. He kind of looks like Bill Gates, like Bill Gates' younger brother. And that's all I'm gonna say.
He's just a dude. You know what I mean, right?
Just a dude.
He just kind of is. Yeah, he just, he's
just a little guy.
Yes,
We're
actually.
all just
guy.
dudes in yoga pants here. That's nothing weird. That's our quote here. We're all just dudes in yoga pants. So
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's gonna be on a new shirt.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Seth made that made that a thing. I guess we're all just dudes in yoga pants here. We're good.
Yes. Next episode, I'll remember to wear yoga pants. I will.
and a beanie if you can manage it.
Deal. Carhartt beanie, I'm in.
He's inspired me. He's inspired me. I'm wearing yoga pants right now, so we're good.
It's just the best way to go. I'm listening.
If you don't mind, could we get like a picture of you like modeling the yoga pants? So we can put
absolutely.
So we can put that on the shirt.
We could do that,
yes.
And also if we actually bring our line of yoga pants out with that Seven Weird logo print, we'll also I'll model some of that if you want. So
yes. Done.
That's
all right.
effing yoga. That's effing
My
yoga.
people will get with your people. We'll make it happen. Yes.
We'll make this happen. We'll make it happen. Don't worry about it.
This is definitely a thing. That's effing yoga. We're gonna get mats. We're gonna get pants. We're gonna get like tank tops. We're gonna like this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
I
Coming
can't
back
even
to yeah.
I can't even go through a like grocery store parking lot right now and not like smell gas fumes and not think about Seth now being like, God, I gotta get into a sauna. Like I gotta like after we did
I
that
just
episode.
I just like how serious Clark has gotten about this. The gears are turning. He's like, we got to start protocol.
Yeah. Like
We gotta co-author a protocol.
This is
Yeah.
serious business. Look.
It was just a silly episode. Now all of a sudden I can't walk through a parking lot without thinking about I gotta go detox now.
I think there are worse things to think about crossing a parking lot. You know what?
True.
Yeah.
Getting back to the story, while Terry Tilly was a pretty unassuming man, he just carried himself in a way that was very mysterious, very, very smart, witty, and know-it-all, but not too much that Gillian would have caught on. Sorry. And there's just something so mysterious and busy and elusive. She kind of was seduced by this side of the man. Her love life was not great at the time. She was married to a gentleman named Jean Marchand, which will be an important character in this story. He had just been through a bankruptcy with the magazine that he had built, and he's a journalist, and it just did not go well, lost a lot of money, and this put a lot of stretch on him, on her, and on their marriage as well. So she lost a confidant and a lover in her husband. So that's what she found in Thierry. He was very much here to listen, to comfort her, and he fixed her problems. And that's just something that she was missing, I think, from her husband at the time. And you add to that the stress of the lawsuit, the stress of the new job, trying to make it work, trying to keep things afloat. I think he came at the right time to do so much damage and just completely wreck the trust between her and her husband.
I think that's something that that cultish people or people that prey on other people, I think that's something that they can pick up on very well, as people's like vulnerabilities and their weaknesses. Not to say that she was weak or anything, but like when you're going through a hard time, I think people like that can pick up on it and see it and then prey upon that. And I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's part of like the cult, like, you know, checklist thing, but I do think people kind of like what you're saying, Lily, just, his only characteristics was the way that he can talk. And maybe that's something that he can see too, is people's vulnerabilities and people's weaknesses. And that's how he preys upon people.
Yes, I could totally see that, because from the story, from what you can gather, he was a very good listener, maybe too good. He just picked on the right details, you know? And at the time, as I said, Gillian was having a rough time in her marriage. Financially, it wasn't easy either. Her son as well had difficulties at school. He was just in a rough period with just all the stress around it. Doesn't really surprise me. And, you know, through the lawyer, through his work at the school, Thierry Tilly just weaved his way an inch closer every time. And at some point she was like, well, look, can you mentor my son? He's having a rough time. And Thierry Tilly, of course, took him in, gave him an internship at his company, Presswell Company, I think it's called, and just gave him an opportunity to recenter, refocus, and just be mentored by Thierry Tilly, which that's just another piece of the puzzle that he grabbed and stole from Gillian at the time.
Now, was his company that he ran, was it already like kind of lucrative, or was it kind of, do you know if it was on like the brink of collapse and this was his way of like?
So here's the thing with Thierry Tilly, he was just a business guy. It wasn't great, his businesses, but at the time he ran just about 10 businesses that were in various stages of being afloat, being not quite running well, being mismanaged. But he was just entrepreneurial, and that particular one, I think Presswell Company, it was doing fairly great. It was doing okay. So, and that's the one he chose to mentor Ghislaine's son. So he was just a business guy, and I think being able to talk so well helped a lot with that. I think so. He claimed when he introduced himself more deeply to Ghislaine, he claimed that he was just this foreign aristocrat, part of the nobility as well. He was a descendant of the Habsburg nobility. Of course, his mom, I believe, had met the French president at the time, François Mitterrand. So he just knew everything about anything. He knew anyone who was something, and if he wanted something to get done, he could. And so far, he had proven that. Even if the issues that Ghislaine brought up to him were not as big as she thought they were, he had just showed up every time. Uh-oh, we lost someone. Was that Alex? Oh,
He'll be back.
Should I just continue or wait?
Yeah, just go for it.
Okay. Okay. And while Thierry Tilly introduced himself as such this worldly man with incredible inheritance, I guess, his good friend now, Vincent David, the lawyer that we talked about earlier, he was also singing his praises. He was saying, "Look, Thierry Tilly, he's so reliable. If you need something done, he will get it done. He's a good confidant. He's a great guy all around." Sorry, I already talked about that. So now we're right at the turn of the century, 2000, and she decides to hire him as a full-time deputy director in the secretarial school. He was just doing so much around already. He managed the teachers, he handled the funds, so it just made sense to pretty much give him the keys of the business. He was just involved in every decisions. Eventually, he worked his way to become so close to Ghislaine that he was virtually her second hand. Yes, sorry. He was just so involved in everything that she was doing that she lost a little bit of autonomy at this point. And she just became so detached of the school. It wouldn't surprise me if simply she was done with it. She had poured enough of her time, of her resources, and simply she was done with the school. So she just relinquished a little bit more, an inch more, to Thierry Tilly, and he took everything. He doubled his salary. He took bonuses. He was taking money from the funds of the school. Because sure, he did do some things to improve the school. He improved their programs. He made it international. It's great what he did, but it was his goal, his aim was just gain and very selfish.
So, he was working at the school and also handling his own business. Was that it?
Yes, multiple businesses. Now, to what extent those businesses were actual businesses, I'm not sure they were anything more than things on paper, but that's what he was doing at the time. He had his companies, and he was also a deputy director, very involved in the school.
Oh, interesting.
So here, at this point of time in my notes, I put a little excerpt about Steve Hassan book. It's called Combating Cult Mind Control. If you can look it up, if it's available in your library or maybe on Audible, give it a listen. I think it's a good book. It's very interesting to just give it a read. And he's the leading cult expert in the Western world, so very knowledgeable guy. And this is what he writes about how or why someone can become a target to cults. This is what he says. The stress is often due to some kind of major transition, moving to a new town, starting a new job, breaking off a relationship, experiencing financial instability, or losing a loved one. People in such situations tend to have defense mechanism that are overloaded or weakened. And if they don't know how to spot and avoid destructive cults, they are easy prey. And I think that pretty much sums up what happened to Ghislaine at this point. She didn't know it, but she was already too close to the fire, I think. Just relinquishing so much of her autonomy and decision making.
Mm.
Yeah,
So yes.
so much of that describes a lot of what we think about, like American, like 60s hippie culture, like what we think
Yeah.
about, like kind of the golden age, I guess what you would think of like cult behavior in the Western world. But I do find that fascinating, like how disenfranchised people can be susceptible to that no matter where you are in the world.
Yes.
Like it doesn't really matter. Like it's not, regional.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are susceptible to that anywhere in that point. Even if it's like I mean, you can say terrorist groups, it can be like religion based, it can be it can be politically motivated. As a historian, I kind of find it fascinating how like the Balkans have always been like a hotbed of kind of, political upending. Like that's how World War One
Turmoil.
did,
Yeah.
things like that. Like it's just fascinating how like disenfranchised youths can be very susceptible when they have no other option.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes.
being pulled into an idea and making maybe poor choices. So
It's such a slippery slope.
yeah.
And I'm remembering now that the three siblings that we mentioned, they had an older sister that passed away. Her name was Anne, and she had just passed away within a year of where we are in the story right now. So add to that losing someone that you look up to, your older sister, it's just such a vulnerable position to be in. Even if Ghislaine was, still is, I should say, just a woman that's pretty good standing in society. She had money. She was rather smart. She was educated, but she still fell into that trap. She just did. It's a slippery slope. Just little bit by little bit, she lost everything that she cared about. Thierry was arguably the solution to all of her problems at that point. He mentored her son. He helped her alleviate stress running the school. He brought the institution afloat. He listened and he comforted her. He wasn't much talking. He was just taking mental notes of everything she was saying because she was very open at that point. She had no reason to distrust the man. He was from a good family. He was rich. He was worldly. And he had helped her so much that they were close friends, or at least that's what she thought. Soon, she talked to him about very private details of her life, including her family dynamic. And he also took mental notes of that, of course. And later, he will use it in the manipulation tactics that he will use on her. And trust me, I've bullshitted my way through quite a few things, okay? But that's the next level. That's just next level. To be just a regular dude and work your way up to be so close to someone that's so blessed in life and using it for evil is something. Takes a lot of guts. What is it? Con man is confidence man. That he had confidence. So that brings us to August 2000. He met the family during one of their summer gatherings at the Chateau Martel, and Ghislaine first introduced Thierry before he was even here, and she sang his praises just so much. He was everything. He knew anyone and he knew everything. He could fix, he could find solutions, he could influence lawsuit. After all, he had helped her tip the balance in her favor with the lawsuit with the school. So that man was so powerful that absolutely her family just had to meet him. And when he finally arrived, everyone was already primed. They were already in that headspace of, we're going to meet someone great. So it was very easy for him after that to use that as a step stool and just continue with the illusion of grandeur and just talk himself up so much that he was just this great person that just could get you in touch with anybody. Of course, his address book, anyone would want access to that. His contacts, his insider knowledge about the market, he knew everything. He knew how to make money, and if you were smart, you would put him in your book so that he could manage your money and make you more money. That's just how it is. He's just that good. He had this gift of listening and adapting like a chameleon to the person that he was talking to. So, for example, the oldest of the siblings, Philip, he had been in the army and he was getting in his 60s. He has still the traditional values very much ingrained in him. And Thierry Tilly used that. He was just, oh, Philip, you've seen the field, you've seen combat, you're so strong. And you know what? I think you should be in charge of that Shell oil company that you're working at because you're such a great guy. And of course, after this interaction, Philip is left with thoughts that are like, wow, Philip is so great. He has the same mindset as I have. He respects his elders. He respects earning a living and earning your value. That's how he weaved his way with everyone. He just picked on, okay, so you do this in life and you're that kind of person. So I'm just gonna work my way around and just infiltrate what you're thinking, your thoughts. Which is crazy when you're actually dissecting afterwards, of course, after the fact, dissecting what he did to those elders that were 3 times as old as him. It's very cruel.
So basically, he was just telling them what they wanted to hear in a way.
Yes. I think, that's a good way to put it. And even if they didn't know that's what they wanted to hear,
yeah,
absolutely. What seemed to impress the family the most was Thierry Tilly's ability to step in and just make sure a situation that they thought was completely lost just turn over and was now in their favor. That was one of his abilities. For example, the family used to put on show choirs with kids every year, and at some point, Guylaine was approached by the authorities about grants and money that may have been mishandled, and she worked so hard over 10 days putting together a report showing that, no, this money came from here and I used it there and nothing was mishandled and everything was right and lawful. She worked for about 2 weeks and she was just about to present it, and Thierry Tilly stopped her dead in her step and said, do not worry about that. I will talk to them. I will get them fixed. And he did. Somehow he did. He talked in her place, and at the end of the day, everything was solved and she didn't have to pay a cent. So he just had this ability to either be at the right time, at the right place, or he knew someone that could help him in a pinch, or simply he talked so well that he could untie the most intricate and possible knot of nonsense. And I don't know how he did that. I didn't really find if he indeed solved those issues or if just He just let it run and hope for the best. But it's incredible that how many times he saved them from a situation that they thought was completely lost. Crazy. So this event, among other things, will have Thierry Tilly ask them to look over their finances because, you shouldn't have that type of problem. You're a very esteemed, established, aristocratic family. You shouldn't have those problems with taxes. So let me look over your finances and let me see what I can do. And this evolved into, let me handle your money because I know that I can make you more money. He promised them over 14% of returns, and somehow the next month he delivered. So they had no reason to not believe this guy. He was just that good. So that's when
Do you
he
think
really had.
sometimes luck plays a huge factor in these things?
Could you say that
Any
again? Sorry.
do you think luck plays a huge
Yeah.
factor in these things?
Yeah,
Right?
I
Because
believe that. Mm-hmm.
you give me money, I'll give you 14% more does not always work. Of course, you need to know the market, you need to know
Mm-hmm.
people who will
Yes.
actually get it done. But
Mm-hmm.
I think in things like this, especially luck definitely plays a role in
Absolutely.
helping them achieve.
Yeah. And it's like, using one bucket to fill another bucket. It's
Mhm.
maybe just money that he moved. Sorry, that's what I meant. It may be money that he
Yeah,
moved from one spot to another just to make it look like the returns were what they were, but he may
right.
have swindled someone else on the other side. So but I do agree there has to be a little bit of luck and a little bit of, being cunning and daring and just doing it. Fuck it, what happens? Yeah. So Terry Tilly worked his way up to be now the right hand of the family. First, he got into the family through Guylaine, worked his way up, now handled their finances, and now he was their advisor. So he would tell them not to invest in this, but to invest in that. He would tell them to sell this property or to invest in this property. He was just so close now to all of their capital. He had a lot of power over the family. Now they still have agency at that point in the story, but again, that will change. Just an inch by an inch, he will take everything that is within reach. I put a note here saying that looking back, it seemed that he had already planned how things would unfold. It's like he had a general map of what to do and when, just mapping out how much information to give at one time and to give to what member of the family, just to make sure that they would lose grasp on reality, which is kind of evil. It just is. He claimed that their status, their fame, and their fortune was envied because they just had so much, about 5 millions that they had, on top of properties, and just they were in good standing, they were respected by the community. So of course people would envy their fortune and their status. Of course it wasn't enough for him to have complete control of their finances, of the decisions that it would make. Now he wanted to cut them off, anyone else that could question his way. He was very successful in doing that. It took a few years, but he very much first closed off the family around itself, and then he just divide and conquer style, just evicted members of the family that just either didn't believe in what he was doing anymore, or maybe they were questioning him, or simply they were not useful anymore. So he would just cut it off. Luna, stop.
Yeah, that's the that's the collapse part when you see the figureheads start like
Yeah.
losing all control. They start just
Mhm.
like cutting everybody out, and they're just like, "Oh, you're not on board," and then you're dead to me.
Mm-hmm. And as I told you before, he introduced himself as this man who knew anybody, and he had, of course, a story about that, an origin story. He was part of a secret society of people that just knew. It was a secret, all-knowing, powerful government organization that was just all across the world. And of course, he was part of it because he knew anybody and he was just that powerful. Of course, their mission, that organization's mission, was to guarantee balance in the world by fighting all forms of evil and corruption. And of course, before you ask, because I know you want to know, of course, the family de Vadrine was part of the good guys. Of course. They were just the last hold for good in this part of France. They had ties to the nobility, they owned land, they were just the last flame to represent what France once was. And simply they needed to be protected, and that is why Thierry Tilly came into their life. Makes sense, right?
My thing with this is that if someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, look, Alex, your family is like, the good guys, and I'm a part of this secret society," I would ask for some sort of proof. Now, I get at this point he's been preying on them, and he kind of has them, not hook, line, and sinker, but he has a grasp of them. But I would still, I feel like at some point, be like, okay, you need to show me some sort of proof that you're a part of this organization, or like the things that you're saying are true. Now I get it. Again, everyone is like has their vulnerabilities, and when someone tells you that you're special, and someone says these things, I think it's you want to believe them, and I think in that most cults there's that like sense of belonging and everything. So I don't know if it was, I don't know. Again, it'd be really interesting to see some of the conversations that he was saying, and like the what he was actually saying to the family to make them believe all of these things. But again, outside looking in, and again, I know I'm in this right state of mind to like see past this, and maybe they weren't. But you would hope that someone would say at some point, like, "Hey, we need a little bit of proof to what you're saying."
But I think, Alex, there's also the fact that these guys were nobility, they were aristocrats. So somewhere they have that within themselves that they are better than others. So if you have, and add to that a person like him who's so manipulative with his words and has already got his hook onto them and is already so close to them, and if he says something that, oh, you guys are good, in their mind it means that they are better than others, which in a way is how blue-blooded people think. I'm not saying all of them, but they always have this thing in themselves that they are better than others. And when you have someone like him telling them that they are the last good people, I think it's easier for them to believe rather than people like us. We're
True.
just common people.
True.
We're just a little bit more
It-
cynical.
Yes, and for them, it's I think it's more easier to believe, and also to believe a person like him, because I'm pretty sure he like Lily said, he's just some little dude. So with his personality as well, I'm sure he must be doing all their work, but also staying a little behind, so that they are in the front, and they think that, oh, we are the ones, we are the greatest, and he knows his place. He knows his place. He's doing our work, but at the same time, he's not overstepping or crossing his boundaries. So in a way, he's built that trust like that, and being blue-blooded, they think they're better. So I guess that was easier for him to manipulate.
There's
But that's
so
just my
much.
thought.
There's so much to factor in. Like you said, inside they already think, not out loud, of course, but they already think, well, we're novelty, you know, we're part of the family. And also they're a little bit older, so maybe they might not be as just questioning, inquisitive, just double checking that everything is right. And at that point, it would be the first round of him winning out who is not quite primed well enough. There is a few members of the family, of the extended family at this time, that are like, look, this guy's a crook. I want nothing of it, and just stay away from me, weirdo. So that's when we see the first wave of family members in the extended family. They're like, nah, I don't believe that. I don't buy that.
See, those extended family members are like us, Alex.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do feel like though that if it is something where you already know that like you come from like nobility and royalty, and like if you already know that you're special, again it has like I really want to know what he was saying to manipulate them. If they already had this chip on their shoulder, I'm not saying that they did, but if they were like, oh yeah, I already know I'm special, okay, then what else was he saying that they didn't already know or needed to hear for him to like get a hold of them?
So
sometimes being surrounded by yes men is, kind of gives boosts to their ego, something that they already know, but getting to hear from another person is all they need.
Yeah,
that's true. And I guess that helping hand, the thing that like he was, it wasn't something like that was drastic. Again, like what you were saying, Lily, at the very beginning, it was very small things like, oh, I can help you out here, and it's building that trust, and maybe that's what it is. It's like it's first building all that trust, and then getting to see like I think he was very, very good at what he did with as far as I don't know if he's done it before. Maybe he had only on a smaller scale. I don't know if you'll get into that. And then like this was the big one that he was looking for. But yeah, I think he was good at what he did in a very bad way.
Yes. This was definitely not his first con, the biggest for sure. Of course we'll get back to that. But part of his conspiracies and what he was the stories that he would say is he's part of this organization, and on the other side you have the baddies, and the bad guys are of course the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, which I've heard a little bit in history class, but I'm a little bit rusty. So if someone knows more about the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, please do go ahead, because I have just very surface level understanding of what they do. Oh, no, that's okay.
Are you talking about actually taking over right now and doing it? Because
sure, I don't care.
That's a whole different conversation. And Seth and I have had a conversation with what was the Freemason guy we talked to? We got into a big conversation about that.
Cody.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Oh gosh, we got into a long conversation about that. So
Huh.
So
okay,
yeah.
Maybe that's a good opportunity to go back and revisit an episode then.
Yeah, so we can do a callback.
Well, no, go ahead and tell him.
Oh, go ahead and tell him that we lost contact altogether with him.
Oh
yeah, we
no,
got to recontact with him because we have a recorded episode, but it wasn't like planned, and I don't want to just upload it. We got to ask his permission.
Yeah, and then somehow we lost contact. I feel I don't know if Seth has contact with him, but yeah, we lost all contact after some secrets, I guess, came out. But
okay,
is he okay? Is he
that's
alive?
the tea
I'm
that I
going to
want to
come
know.
right out and ask.
Yeah,
Is he alive?
I think he's in my state. I think he's close by. Last time I checked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not just with the Freemason though, with the Rosicrucians though, which is obviously crossing the rows. This is Scottish Rite church basically.
I know what you're doing.
So that's a whole different thing, and then you get a lot of I guess we go to Templar stuff and we get to Holy Grail
Mm-hmm.
theories and things like that. So that's a whole nother episode.
All
But
right, we know what next episode is going to be. Sweet. So that would be the bad guys in Thierry Tilly's story. And it ties so well in the, we're aristocrats, we're here to defend this idea of monarchy in France. We're just, of course, they have ties in the all the way back to the 17th century with Louis XIV. So of course, all of that ties perfectly with a beautiful bow. It works great for Thierry Tilly, of course. And everyone, the few in the family that left and thought that he was a crook, were clearly they were not part of the core family that was important and that he's fighting for and protecting. So clearly they were not the good ones, of course. Guylain's husband, his name was Jean Marchand. He was a journalist, as I've said before, and quickly he gathered that Thierry Tilly is kind of a goofball, isn't he? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Jean Marchand knew enough just to see through his web of lie and just the way he talked to people and his way of just manipulating their words and just throwing back at them. He kind of saw through that, and quickly he said, look, he's an idiot. I don't trust this guy. He thought that he was a threat to the family, and that marked the start of Jean Marchand being absolutely ousted from the family. Clearly, he didn't have his family's best interest in mind, because Thierry Tilly had been good to them up to this point, and he had made them money. He had solved their problems. He had even bent the law for them. This guy was great. And the fact that Jean Marchand was questioning this wasn't acceptable. He wasn't acceptable. So Thierry Tilly planted seeds here and there, one after the other, thinking that Jean Marchand, clearly he wasn't part of the good guys. He's part of the bad ones. And Guylain, of course, she completely dismissed all of that because she thought Thierry Tilly was a godsend, of course. She met him first. It'd been about 3 or 4 years now that she knew this man to some degree. He helped their son. So she loved him. Of course, she didn't think that Jean Marchand had anything to stand on. She completely dismissed it. It wasn't long before Thierry Tilly started to demonize Jean Marchand, and he told Guylain that he had very strong suspicions that Jean Marchand worked with the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians, of course. So he was just an enemy to the family and to the estate. He even told Guylain that her older sister Anne, like I've told you, that has passed away. He pretty strongly believed he may have proof that Guylain's brother-in-law, so Jean Marchand's brother, may have poisoned Anne, and that is why she passed away. So Thierry Tilly is already weaving this web of lies, and already there's murder involved. This lady that just passed away, I believe it was a disease. She just passed away, and he's now accusing extended family to have murdered her, poisoned her.
Okay, quick question, and this is for everyone. Do you think this is the downfall of him, is accusing other family members and getting everyone to turn on each other, and that's why it all fell apart? Or is because that also it's not.
No.
Okay.
I think he really lost his grip when he turned to physical violence. I think that's when it was over, because it wasn't enough anymore to talk his way into their mind. He had to literally beat them into thinking that his way was the way. So I think that was just what he had planned. That was the start. He knew already that, well, if anyone is not useful to me anymore, I'll just put them in that box and nobody is gonna be around them anymore because they'll trust me, of course.
Okay. I would, yeah, I was just wondering because I almost feel like that might have been a downfall, but you're already saying that it was something completely different, because I could see as soon as you start, coming up with these accusations and like, oh, I have proof, but then again, you don't present that proof or you don't have anything to back that up, then I could maybe see that was his downfall. But I guess if they were believing him still at this point and he had to turn into physical violence, and that's when they, got away. Okay, that makes sense.
It's hard to believe the naivety that they had just throughout the year, blindly trusting this man with huge amount of money or with their lives. We'll get to it, of course, but continuing on, we're now in the summer of 2001, sorry. And at that time, the funds in the school are just no more. There's no more Thierry Tilly can do to save the school, so it shuts down. And again, that was weighing quite a lot on Guylaine, but she let it happen because, according to Thierry Tilly, this was part of the plan. It was temporary. It was for her safety. And he had people working on that. The school was not lost. No, it was turned into a safe place that would be used later on. Sure. He programmed them, into thinking that the most mundane interaction that really didn't have anything to do with them, with their family, that was a threat. That was an attack. That was someone either tracking them or just doing something that was nefarious, and the end goal was to destroy them. So first it could be someone that was in the street. Right? Yeah, it's the paranoia that starts at that point. You're right. It could be someone in the streets, you're just walking and they just glance at you because you're in their field of vision. No. That's someone that's tailing you. That's someone that's keeping track of your whereabouts, of what you're doing, who you're talking, where you're going. Someone that just peeks around of their newspaper. Nope. That's also someone who is tailing you, who is keeping track, and who is looking towards your downfall. And he just planted that so deep in their mind that it would take a decade to undo that harm. Even just...
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that, having that feeling, having someone say like, oh, someone's following you, someone's watching your every move, like to have that that constant, it would just, I feel like the stress of the world would just be on your shoulders, and it would just be so tough. And I guess that would be a reason why you wouldn't want to leave your house, or why you wouldn't want to leave, is because you would have these, thoughts of like, oh, someone's watching me, or my every move, and it would just drive you nuts.
Anyone. And if there's nothing that fits your fears, you will make up something that fits your fear. Even if nobody is really paying attention to what you're doing in your daily life, you will find someone that's like, oh, no, I've seen this person yesterday at the same time, and I know they're up to no good. It's bad.
And I think it might be kind of easy to tell someone like, okay, watch out for someone who's like wearing this certain item, because I mean, if you make it very generic, and like you could be like, all right, they're going to have a briefcase and they're going to be wearing this. Well, a lot of people wear that. So it's like, oh, it's that. Oh no, it's that person, so I think it could be very easy to manipulate someone, or to tell someone's watching you, look out for this. But so many people wear that exact. I wonder, now this is completely off topic, but I'm wondering if that's kind of what psychics do, where it's very generic information, where it's like, okay, I think South Park made a joke about this, but it's like, all right, I'm feeling that in the energy that there's something to do with money problems. Well, money is a very, like, everyone has money problems to some degree.
It's cold reading.
Like, yeah. So I think it's on the same lines of that.
Totally agree.
Again, off topic. I've heard about South Park doing a lot of things. I really need to go and watch. Alex,
Yes.
I've heard this a lot. Every episode.
Please, please do that. We should all
I'll have
have
to
a
check.
South Park night with Ro. We should all
Agreed.
hop into the Discord.
Yes,
We don't even
please.
have to worry about recording. We just watch it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Done.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. On the flip side of Thierry Tilly putting this kind of paranoia in their mind, he had agents and teams all around protecting the Dividrine, of course. He would go away and in a corner talk to someone on the phone. Very secretive, very, yeah.
Wait.
It was
So,
nobody, probably, but he was
oh,
convincing them that there's people around the house, in the streets, protecting us from the bad
okay.
guys.
So he was okay. I thought you actually meant like he had like a real team of people. I was like, oh, were those the people out in the street,
Mhm.
like quote unquote, watching them? But
Watching.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
Complete lies through and through. Complete lies. He would say that he had teams all over the world watching out for them, protecting them, or, stopping removing, what's it called? Explosive material under their cars. But it was complete BS. And they believed it still. Of course. In September 2001, there's yet another step of control with Thierry Tilly and the family. He would decide on who comes to what event. He would only sanction people that he thought were in. The others, no. They were either the Freemasons, or they were rooting for the demise of the family. They were looking for their destruction. So quickly, he just removed people off the list and once more just weeded out who was not primed, who wasn't programmed to his liking. So that's wave 2 of him removing extended family, including Jean Marchand, Guylain's husband. So that's when he was persona non grata anymore. First, he instructed the siblings and Philip's wife, Bridget, to just sequester themselves in the school just to keep safe, because agents were moving around and it was just too unstable. The situation was too unstable, so they just had to lock themselves in the school, the abandoned school at that point. And he said they have to be physically in the school to keep it standing. Otherwise, the government and just the Freemasons are going to take it. They're going to take everything. They're going to lock you up, put you in the mental institute. It's going to be terrible. And what did they do? They did exactly that. They went into the school. They stayed there in the cold with no electricity, no heat, nothing. They stayed and they waited until Thierry Tilly said, "We're good." They ended up staying in that school for the better part of 4 months. Barely going out, barely talking to anyone, just staying there for 4 months with barely enough, just food to eat or no comfort, nothing. And they just ate it up. They really did. In December, the repo came to the school because the funds had been gone for a long time now, and it was time to take everything out. But again, of course, Thierry Tilly was like, it's all part of the plan, y'all. Okay? They're not repossessing everything in the school. No. They're taking it away and put it in a safe storage because assassins are coming up and we need this out. And you guys need to be out as well. Go to Philip's house and we just need to get this going as soon as possible. Of course, all of that was also BS. They just had to pay what they owed, and their belongings were repossessed. But Thierry Tilly just flipped the story around, and all of a sudden, it was his plan, and it was his his way. He had it all planned the way it should be. He had an explanation for everything. That's what I was trying to say.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. It keeps going. I hope you're comfortable because it keeps going. From 2002 to 2003, most of the family hid in the Chateau Martel. And they were still corresponding to Thierry Tilly, which at the time, I almost missed that. He had to go to England because one of his warrant was out and he was going to be jailed. So he just flew to England. He was still corresponding with them, calling them, email. He was giving them orders. And over the year, they kept in touch. And he was like, in 2002, he was like, we need to lock all y'all up in Chateau Martel. Keep you guys safe. And every once in a while, he would give them orders such as, you have to board up all the windows, you have to turn off the lights, you have to be extremely quiet, and you have to wait. I have agents around that are trying to protect you and are trying to kill off any assassins that are coming, so you need to stay put and you need to stay low. That's what they did. That's what they did. They didn't know any better. They didn't have a reason to distrust Thierry Tilly. He had been good to them as far as they were concerned. So they did it. They just did.
That's just blind faith.
It's just, like you said, blind faith and no questioning of, like, when is this gonna end? What are we doing? Who are we fighting? Is this even worth it? Can we go to the police? There's none of that. Oh, did you change your t-shirt? Sorry, I'm
Yes,
just waking up.
I like how you're.
I'm just waking up just now.
Okay. Yes, I did change my t-shirt.
Was it uncomfortable to have the tag on your neck?
Yes, it
Yes,
was.
I think that was. Yeah.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair. All right, this time. Fine. So Thierry Tilly, while he was away in England, he instructed the de Vedrine to keep a journal of everything that was going on. He was very just on top of things at this point. His control was kind of out of whack. He needed to know everything, where they were going, what they were doing, who they were talking to. Only Guylaine was allowed to go out. She would get some groceries once a month, come back. She would have to give a very detailed recount of what happened, what did she do, what did she buy, who did she talk to, because it just had to be so careful and to be safe. Thierry Tilly had to know everything. And that's what they did. They just kept a journal and they would tell him what was going on. By late 2003, the sole breadwinner of the family at that point was the youngest sibling, Charles-Henri, and he was an OBGYN. He just had to send tens of thousands of euros to Thierry Tilly, and he was advised by the convent that he needed to conduct an audit of his practice just to know what was going on and if everything was in order, because if the Freemasons had put their little grabby hands into their funds or into the practice, that would not be good for the de Vedrines. So, of course, he had a very good contact to help with that. And who was it other than Vincent David, the lawyer from the beginning of the story? Now, if we have a little bit of a side note here, the reason why this audit was conducted by Vincent David was because Thierry Tilly had scammed him out of just about 9,000 euros, and Thierry Tilly needed to make that money. So what he thought was, I could have Vincent approach Charles-Henri, do the job, and then bill him for about the amount that I owe him, and everything will be in order. Thing is, Jean-Marie couldn't really afford that. He had been giving away just hundreds here, 2,000s, tens of thousands to Thierry Tilly. He was just running low on liquidities. So Thierry Tilly told him, you have to shut this whole thing down. You have to sell your practice. You have to liquidate all of your assets. You need to pay this because this is very important. And he told them, after you've done with that, you have to leave to safety. Because clearly something is awfully wrong if you can't afford to pay this audit with my lawyer for 9,000 euros. Which, where does that make sense? Just where does that make sense? That's what happened, though. I'm not making this up.
It's like a roller coaster just kept increasingly getting insane to where I guess people that, I guess if you were subject to that in that weird stupor, you would be, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, it's been such a slow boil to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely, being slowly boiled alive. That's a perfect analogy for that. Because they have been hammered with the idea that there's no other solution but to do what Thierry Tilly is saying they should do. So they'll find a way. Otherwise, the person that's not doing it is going to get shunned, is going to be out of the family, and they're going to be out with nothing. At that point of the story, Jean Marchand, who was Guylain's husband before she just threw him out of her life, he's really starting to see the very real destruction of his family's fortune. He still has 2 children with Guylain that are still tied up in this nonsense, and it's just very scary because he hasn't seen them for a year, almost 2. He starts to bring the story to the press. He still has a lot of contacts from his days of being deep into journalism, so he just reaches out. He gets people onto the chateau to see what's going on, to get the word out, because this man, Thierry Tilly, he's a poison and he's destroying his family. A journalist, a friend of his, Delas is his name, he will get to the chateau and he will try to get a statement from the family. I think he gets Guylain at the door when he knocks. They refuse to make a statement. They don't want to talk to the press, to the TV, to nobody. They're trying to keep safe. And if Thierry Tilly has not sanctioned this journalist, he is good as nothing. Just go away. He publishes a paper saying, well, this is what I found, and they're recluse. They're not talking to me. They're just self-isolating. Luna, get the heck out. Sorry. Luna the cat is trying to get comfortable on my lap. That's it.
This is a cat-friendly podcast.
Yes. Yes, but she's being destructive. Not destructive, but she's being a stinker. Okay.
We need to start putting purrs on really low volume in the background of all our podcasts.
Yes.
It's
that,
like part
and we
ASMR.
need a kitty cat cam as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll work on that.
Thanks. So this journalist decides to publish a paper on the family, just detailing what he knows from Jean Marchand, and he gets hit with a lawsuit from the family, invasion of privacy. And turns out they win. He has to pay them 23,000 euros because he published that paper. He doesn't name Thierry Tilly in this article. He calls him Thierry T, which probably working around some laws and restrictions there. And that's not enough to really put a seed of doubt in the members of the family that are still sequestered in the chateau. They dismiss everything. If anybody says that Thierry Tilly is a con man, they're liars, and they're good for nothing. It doesn't stop there, though. Jean Marchand will go to the TV, he will do interviews, and he really wants to get the word out because clearly he can't do much by himself because he's not even allowed to see his kids. He's not allowed to see Guylaine, his wife, or his ex-wife. So it's just terrible all around. So he reaches out to the television, and he will actually get cameras to come to the property and try to talk to them. And you can find the very short snippet online on YouTube if you look it up. All they say in French is, "Do not come any closer. If you need to tell us something, go through our lawyer. Just, that's it. Go away, turn back. Private property, just go away." It's a complete wall. There's nothing. They don't want any communication with the outside world, which is sad because it comes from a family that was very close to the community. They were rather open, and now they're so closed off to everybody. Just everybody and anybody. In August
At this point, sorry, Lily, I just wanted to check. At this point, I'm sure the three siblings have children, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Philippe, who's the eldest, who was 60, I'm sure he'd have children in his 20s, who are in their 20s.
Yes. They're adults. They're young adults. Some of them try to get married. I removed that detail from my research because it was just too much. It's so one of the third generation, the children, the young adults, one of them tries to get married to someone that she falls in love with, and by some chance she gets away long enough to realize that there's a problem. But she still gets back in. She's reeled back in by her mother and Thierry Tilly, and she just breaks off with her husband, at the time. And they seem to be very much in love. And you can see this gentleman, I wish I remembered his name now. He gives an interview saying that he felt insane. He felt like he was losing his mind, trying to understand why she left. And finally he says, "I healed a little bit when I realized that there is no rationality to what she did. There's no way to understand because there's no rhyme or reason. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything." It was just it put it into perspective that these are real people. It was a lot.
That's just sad.
Yeah.
The way you described that that way almost is like the Wicker Man kind of thing. Like you meet
It's
this person.
crazy.
Yeah, you're like, you meet this person and it's like, oh, this is the perfect person. You can't imagine your life without them, and then they have to disappear back into this cult-esque, I guess.
The reach that he has, the power he has over those folks is ridiculous. Nobody should have that amount of power over someone. I don't think so. To be able to say you're not allowed to see your children, or you're not allowed to see your father, or you're not allowed to go to your mother-in-law's funeral, even if you were super close to her. It's...
I wonder what he says. I mean, like you said, the daughter was able to see it from an outside perspective, understood that there is something wrong, and yet chose to come back into this family. I wonder what was told to her. Maybe there might be a threat of life. I mean, maybe they threatened her that her husband would be killed.
There's
because one
some
way
of
or the
that.
other. Yeah.
And there's just, talking to your mom every day, and she is just reinforcing this in your mind that you have to come back and what you're doing is not right, and this man is dangerous, and you're threatening the family. It's like beating this crap in her mind every day, every other day. It must have been really rough. And I can just only imagine that at some point she had to make the decision of, am I just going to stay here and just constantly think I did this to my family and I'm ruining them, or I'll just go back and it will be okay. Everyone will be safe. So it must
That's
have
one
been such a,
major guilt trip.
it's tough. It's terrible. Serious. In August of 2006, some 10 years after their initial meeting with Thierry Tilly, Charles-Henri, the youngest of the siblings, and his wife Christine are invited to Oxford in England to join Thierry Tilly and see him in person. They're told that they should be here for only a few days. It will be catching up, mostly talk about the funds, make sure that everything is in order and straightened out. They end up staying years there. And the conditions were horrible. They were terrible. They were staying in a guest house that was on the opposite side of where Thierry Tilly was staying. And it was just not livable. Cables dangling from the ceiling. The electricity wasn't working right. The heating wasn't working right. This place was just a mess. It wasn't really livable, and it wasn't to the standard that, you know, a well-to-do family from France could expect. Like this was just not it. Christine, she didn't really get programmed as deeply by Tilly as the others. After all, she was only the daughter-in-law. She was Charles-Henri's wife. And she just looked over the family fortune quickly. She just kind of went through the documents that she had access to, and she estimated that they had lost over 4 million euros at that time.
Oh God.
And of course, she goes to Thierry Tilly and she's like, what's going on? Where's all that money? We need answers. I need answers. But the thing is, according to Thierry Tilly, she was not to know about that. It wasn't her role. It wasn't her place. He would have private conversation with her husband, Charles-Henri, that she would know nothing about. It would pertain to money. It would pertain to the family's safety, to the other siblings. But she wouldn't be let in to those conversations. So she was just lost, doubting still, is this man still for our own good, or is he actually destroying us? Is he bringing the destruction that he was trying to protect us from? She was just kind of lost in that limbo here for a second. She had met him only a few times at that point. Couple times in person. She had talked to him a few times on the phone, exchanged emails, but other than that, she wasn't as programmed. And it was just, she had a crucial part in that balance that I mentioned before, you know, the greater good and being protected from the Freemasons, etc. She had a part in that because turns out, she was part of a family that was very important, of course. She knew about a message, or he would call it a transmission, that was a secret, a location of a fortune, that a treasure that she would know about. And it was buried deep in her head, in her memory. She didn't know about it. She wasn't conscious about it, but it was in there. She just had to really, 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 really look deep. Thierry Tilly knew, because he just knew. He knew. And he tried to get this idea into into Christine, that she had a greater role to play than what she thought, and that kind of reeled her in a little bit. Because of course she was special too. She wasn't just, you know, the wife of. Of course she was special too. So he has golden jewelry. That's what he said this treasure was about. But she didn't know what that was about, but at the same time she didn't want to be shunned. She had seen what had happened to her brother-in-law, Jean Marchand. She had seen what had happened to extended family, and they were just completely barred from their life. She didn't want that. She loved her children. She loved her husband. She had too much to lose. So she tried to come up with something. So at some point she remembered, she mentioned just a detail that her family had ties with Belgium. Maybe they had gone to a vacation there at some point. Something just inconsequential. But Thierry Tilly latched on to that detail. And before they knew it, her and her son were in Belgium, going from bank to bank, asking every teller, "Do I have an account with your bank?" No?
Oh,
Okay, thanks. Going from bank to bank. And they were laughed at because it's a silly thing to ask. You know, do you know of my family just keeping gold and jewelry in your bank? Nothing? Okay. No, this is not a robbery, sir. It's not a robbery. We're good. It's just she didn't know what she was doing, but she wanted to make things better so much that she tried really hard. That was not good enough. It made Cherry Tilly very upset, very angry that she wasn't able to come up with the treasure, the transmission that he was talking about. So they ended up sitting her down and really talking to her because now she had to come up with something. Okay, now it was ridiculous. Thierry Tilly knew that she knew something. She knew where it was. She knew an account number. She knew a location. He convinced her husband, Charles-Henri, that she knew. And Charles-Henri, being as programmed as he was, he believed it. And they started to really, really question her. It started to become a little nasty. After several days of interrogation, she gave up a lead, something, but again, it was nothing because she just made it up. She didn't know what was what. The numbers, the location, and the name didn't amount to anything because they were random. They were pulled out of just nothingness. So they decided to keep her locked in. They confiscated everything. Her belongings, her jewels, her banking information, just everything, her paperwork, passport, everything. At this time, the rest of the family comes up because it's a serious matter at this time. And it gets so bad that Thierry Tilly asks her to jog her memory. He just sits her down in a room and he's like, "You're gonna write those lines and it's gonna jog your memory. You just write it down. Write it. Just write a bunch of times. You'll be fine." That's what she does. She takes a pen of paper and for days on end, she just writes various sentences. Just, "I can do it. If I want it, I can. I'm gonna remember this for the sake of my family. If I do not do this, I am endangering the lives of my children." Writing this over and over. At this point, she tries to escape, but she doesn't make it very far because she's weak. She is older. She's not old, but she's older, so she's not as quick. She only makes it to the street, and then she's dragged back right in that house. And it's just, it gets worse from here. It does. It just does.
So,
She was
I'm
let.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Before we proceed, I just wanted to check. I mean, she also belonged to some good family, right? That's what he said, that she was also special. And when she was going around checking in banks whether her family has an account open, whether there's gold, um, why didn't she reach out to her own family to check that
I am
instead
not
of
sure
going to
about
bank?
that. I'm not sure. It could be that maybe it still needed to be a secret and that the family didn't need to know she was looking for it. Maybe. Just theorizing at this point. I'm not sure why she didn't reach out. I'm not sure. Maybe she didn't have as tight of ties with them since they blocked everyone around them. That could be it. They were also in another country. That could play a part in that as well. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah, but then this is the 2000s, right? I mean, it would have been easy to communicate over internet
Yeah.
or a phone. It's Hmm.
Yeah, and they're very used to
That's it.
emails, so she could have done that. And if she did, I have not found it. I have not found
I-
it. If she did reach out to her family. But you would think, yeah, that would be the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. True.
Yeah. She was let out once, but in 2008, she was back to being sequestered by the entire family. And to that point, it wasn't only Thierry Tilly keeping her in and just asking her to write lines and just do those silly assignments. It was the entire family, because at this point, all of them thought, no, she knows something. She knows something, and she has to tell us what's going on, because we need that money at that point. Like, she gave up at some point. She couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep or leave. They took her to the basement, put her on her stool, and they kept her awake for days on end. Because what Thierry Tilly said, he said, if she falls asleep, she's gonna forget about the secret, about the transmission. So keep her awake, ask her where it is, she knows where it is. And she just couldn't pull out that kind of money out of, thin air. It went on to some time until Thierry Tilly resorted to just punching her and pushing her off the stool and just shaking her up and trying to get that information out of her. And there was nothing to get out. He accused Christine to have an affair with Jean Marchand, which is Guylain's ex-husband. He was outside of the family now. Oh, sorry. So he accused her of having an affair, and there was no grounds to that. She would never do that. She had children with Charles-Henri. She loved him very much, so there was no reason for her to do something like that. But of course, according to Thierry Tilly, he had a video, he had proof, and she was lying. She was keeping the fortune. Everyone was so against her. It lasted 24 days.
Oh my
24
God.
days
Without
of
sleep?
torture. It's crazy, isn't it? Like, how can you do that to your own family members? It's crazy. Finally,
I cannot even begin to fathom what what is being told to these people, that they turn against your own family, your own wife, your own mother.
right? It's so barbaric and just so cruel to do something like that to that poor woman. And after, like I said, after 24 days that she didn't give out anything, and she was so weak, and clearly, if she didn't say anything up until now, she's not gonna let it out by that point. And Thierry Tilly's next scheme was to convince everybody, we have to sell the chateau. We need money.
Huh?
We are in financial ruin at this point. You guys need to sell the Chateau Martel. And that rose a few questions, because that was, a prized possession of the family. It was their home that they had known for so long, that they had owned for so long. So that didn't go very well, and they tried to find workarounds to not sell it, or to put a mortgage on it. Finally, they were able to sell it, but with the clause saying that if they can pay 51,000 a year, they would be able to buy it back. Unfortunately, they were not able to produce the 51,000 euros, and the chateau was lost. In 2008, it didn't belong to the de Vitrine anymore, which is so sad, like from a, historical viewpoint, that it belonged to such a family for so many decades,
Mhm.
centuries, and now it was just sold. It's sad in a way.
And to think that they did everything to maintain that so-called nobility, and they lost.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and that's like the beginning of everything is going bad for Terry Tilly at this point. He kind of starts to lose grasp on the family members. You can tell that at this point of the story, he's not having as much control over them. In February of 2008, after the chateau is sold, he sit them down and he talks about the finances, but that doesn't go over well because the chateau was just sold, so they should have liquidities, and it's not looking like they have much of anything. Philippe, the elder son, he just goes in a fit of rage. He says to Thierry Tilly that he's a manipulator, that he's a con man, that he's a con artist, that he stole money from them, and that he's trying to destroy them. The other
Wow,
siblings,
realization.
right? I'm glad you caught on. The other siblings, they don't really subscribe to that. They're not seeing just yet how deep Thierry Tilly's control has gone. And there's just a big scuffle. It's bad. It's very bad. They end up all going back to France, away from Thierry Tilly. And they still try to get in touch with Thierry to get the money because now they don't have anything. And Charles-Henri sold and closed his practice. He was an OBGYN, not anymore. So they really don't have any income coming in, and it's very dire straits. Philippe again had enough, and at this time, in a fit of rage, there's a big old fight, and the cops end up being called, and he's taken away to be at the hospital in a mental facility to just calm down after this argument because it was really bad. I think he bit one of his sibling. He just bit the crap out of them. That's how bad it got. Like they were almost regressing to children, being in such dire straits and just being so desperate, and they have no autonomy anymore. They have no agency. So we're going to punch each other in the face and we're going to bite someone enough to draw blood. So he bit the crap. I think his sibling, I believe so. So it was just, at this point, there's a little glimpse of hope for Philip. While he is in the hospital, he's slowly starting to break hold of Thierry Tilly. He's trying to regain his senses a little bit, and he's starting to see that there's something very wrong that's going on with his family. He reaches out, he gets in touch with Jean Marchand. All this time he's been trying to help his family members. He's been devastated and he's just trying. So it's a lot at that point. He gets to take him out of the grasp of Thierry Tilly and they can talk, but he's still not quite ready to sign off a statement and actually press charges against Thierry Tilly. It's going to take him a little bit to get back to reality on that. And I can't blame him because the amount of psychological torture that he went through, that would
cannot
be too
be changed
much.
overnight.
Yep.
You'll take time to come out of it, and somewhere, in that deep subconscious, you will have doubts whether you're doing the right thing to go against the person who was there,
Right?
doubling your money, making sure that you're safe, even though he wasn't. But somewhere in that subconscious mind, you'll be like, maybe he just, he did the right thing. Maybe there's always a maybe there. So yeah,
Yes.
these things don't change overnight.
I totally agree. And I wrote down a little point in my notes. I wonder if at some point Thierry Tilly as like the figure, you know, not the man himself, but like the idea of Thierry Tilly kind of became a father figure almost.
True.
Almost like becoming some sort of father to them because their father had passed away a long time ago. And
Possible.
maybe they saw something in him, the way maybe he gave them orders and kind of directed them and gave sense to their lives. Maybe
True.
maybe they saw it like that a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have to do a lot of thinking on their own. You know, there was someone else who was doing it for them. So that dependency, I think, was taken away from them, and that's why I think at a point they'll feel lost after, moving away from him.
Yes. And there was definitely some of that. It took a while for Philip to actually open up to Jean Marchand, but when he did, not only he signed a statement against Thierry Tilly, he also gave the new address to where his remaining family members, Guylaine, his children, where they were. And that was huge information because he had completely lost track of them since they went to England. He had no idea. So having that information now was extremely valuable. He was able to get the cops there to do what's it called? Shoot. Sorry, I wrote it somewhere. Wellness check. That's what he did. He was able to get the authorities to do wellness checks on the family. And while the authorities didn't see anything alarming at first, the fact that it was documented was already huge. It would help later on in the lawsuit. I'll speed up a little bit because I know it's been going on for quite some time now, but Jean Marchand showed up. Oh, okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Seth. Jean Marchand ended up showing up at the address, and he wasn't threatening, he wasn't antagonistic, but he wanted answers. Unfortunately, his family members were not receptive, and they still thought that he was part of the either Freemasons of the or the Rosicrucians. So they were not receptive when he came in to not quite save them at this point, but just check in on them. Because at that point, it'd been years since he'd seen his children. So he just wanted to say, I'm here, you're loved, and just come back to me. Come back to me. It took a lot of time for the web to untangle. It was very painful, and Thierry Tilly was such skilled con man that he had many fall guys. Surprisingly, even if this was a one-man con, he still had fall guys. For example, he was in touch with a gentleman by the name of Jacques Gonzalez. He gave him some of the money from the Dividrines, and he recorded him and manipulated the conversation to some extent so that he would incriminate himself when it came to an eventual lawsuit. He also had one of the young adults, the little children, to have some of the money from the Chateau Marcel being sold on their account, on their bank account, so that they would be incriminated in case anything happened. He was one step forward, and even if at that point he was slowly losing power over the Dividrine, he was still one step ahead and planning for the eventual downfall of his mini cult. Crazy. Like, to think that someone would go to those extremes.
He actually had thought it out through. I mean, to have a backup plan in case things go kaput.
Exactly.
means he did think about it through the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like one of those things where I'm always worried. No, nobody would think or like go that far on that idea or that seems
Yeah.
or that like voice, that paranoid voice where it's like, oh, they're out to get, but this guy is like planning every facet, and it bothers
Hmm.
me because I was kind of convinced I was making that up in my head, but thank you for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was definitely playing chess when everybody else was playing checkers. Definitely.
Like I
He
wasn't
was
I
just,
wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting it to get this ramped up. I thought it was like, I don't know. I had when we started this, I had a completely different picture.
hmm he is insane. He's insane.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I will tell you what ended up happening after the lawsuit, I promise you your jaw will be on the floor because I was not expecting this outcome. Very crazy. But let's keep going. So right now at the story, um, the family is starting to shake this grip off. Finally, they're starting to realize that reality is otherwise. Thierry Tilly has been weaving this web of lie and just completely covering their eyes and their mind with this fog of lies and just conspiracies and Freemasons and all of that. One by one, pretty much, they reach out to either Jean Marchand or to other family members that have gotten out. For example, Christine, the one that was tortured for the better part of a month, she finally makes it out of this terrible, terrible cult. And it takes her quite a long time to open up about what happened. But when she does, it's a very instrumental part of bringing the case forward and starting the process, the judicial process. When she signs her statement, brings it up to a judge, and finally tells the world what happens, everybody is baffled because no one had a clue it went this far. It's ridiculous. It's so crazy. I feel bad for her because what she's gone through, it could break your mind for just the rest of your life.
Yeah, 24 days is crazy.
24 days of trying to remember something that is not real. It's not
God.
it's not real. You can't make something up out of thin air because she tried to do that, but of course it led to nothing because it was made up. So it took a lot, but finally, Thierry Tilly was located in England. And now I have to either remind you or tell you that England is not in the Schengen area. They're not. Their borders are not open. Even more now with the Brexit, but even back then, they would not just extradite someone that had a warrant, for example. So the authorities, the French authorities, had to be very careful and look into Thierry Tilly's behavior and his plans. And by some sort of happenstance, he got wind that some of his businesses, I believe, were in trouble, and he had to go to Belgium. Now, Belgium is available to get prisoners, or I'm sorry, not prisoners, but criminals, or
Oh,
I'm missing the word that I'm thinking.
suspects? I don't know.
Suspects. Thank you, Ro. Thank you. If you're a suspect or if you have a warrant for your arrest, you can be extradited because Belgium is part of the Schengen space in Europe. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as he landed, Thierry Telly was taken by the authorities and he was put in hold. Now, unfortunately, the other family members are still afraid, are still scared for their life. And I believe at that point, there's two, I think, family members left in this just completely sequestered and refusing to go out and realize who and what Thierry Tilly is. I think it's Ghislaine and her son, if I remember correctly, but I'm not 100%. I know she wasn't alone in the house at the end, but I can't remember for sure who was the other family member. So the ones that have gotten away try to form a plan to get her out. Think of it as an intervention. With a cult expert from France and a few others, they go to the house where she is self-isolating and they try to contact her. Now, they fib a little bit. There's a little bit of trying to ease into this conversation, but unfortunately, as she opens the door to talk to the person, she catches a glimpse of Philip just at the corner of the street, and she just understands that this is not good. This is the Freemasons again. This is not good. Shuts the door and just completely cuts off communication that time around. Unfortunately, with the commotion, the authorities are called, and it doesn't end very well. That at that time they have to explain themselves. They have to say, look, this is an intervention. What we're doing is very important. We're trying to save someone. They try to explain the magnitude of what happened and why Ghislaine needs their help right now. She needs to be deprogrammed. So with the help of the authorities, they form a plan that instead of trying to talk to her first, they need to shock her out of this stupor. So they pretty much just reach out to her and as soon as they can, show them a video footage of Thierry Tilly with the authorities arrested, talking about the Davidrines as if they were good for nothing, stupid, old, just crap, dirt on the ground. And this is when finally Ghislaine understands that there's a disconnect between her idea of who Thierry Tilly is and what he is really, what kind of man he is. She finally understands that he is not this wonderful blah 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 blah. He's just a con man. He is a fraud, and he took advantage of her family, and they lost so much. It's really at that point where all of them are starting to heal, but there's still a lot of work to do. So I won't go into too much details about the trial, but needless to say, Thierry Tilly is just making a complete farce out of the trial. He tells they decide not to have a jury trial. They have just a magistrate trial because they think that it wouldn't be easy for jurors to understand the magnitude of this case. So Thierry Tilly just puts on a show. He just is clowning around, talking all these tales of what he knows and how many languages he speaks, and he has met this person and he's been to this country, and actually he's not even French, he's not even English, he's from this country. It's just complete lunacy. He is truly he's lost touch with his audience, with reality, with all of it. He's not all there. So this is just, he is convicted, he is sentenced to 8 years, which isn't much.
That's it?
It isn't much. Let me see if I can find the charges again. He was finally sentenced to illegal arrest, kidnap, imprisonment or arbitrary detention of a hostage, violence against a vulnerable person, criminal exploitation of the ignorance or the weakness of a person in a state of psychological or physical subjection. He appealed it, and he got maximum sentence of 10 years, which in my very humble opinion is nothing. It's
bullshit.
Nothing. Right? It's nothing. He had to do 10 years in prison. He had to pay about 80,000 to Christine as restitution. He also had to pay another smaller amount because Christine and Charles-Henri were the ones that lost the most in terms of assets and capital.
Right.
And after he served his 10 years, he has been to this day in a psychiatric hold in a mental institute. So thank goodness, at least he's not out and about scamming people and defrauding people. Because the damage he's managed to do in 10 to 12 years is about 4.5 million euros lost, about 2 million euros that are unaccounted of the overall fortune, which some people are theorizing that they're in a offshore's bank account somewhere.
It's quite possible.
And out of all of that, just about 200,000 euros were recovered. They were not able to get the Chateau Martel back. They were not able to get back a lot of their properties they had to sell. One silver lining is that Charles-Henri, the youngest of the sibling, he is back to being an OBGYN, so he's back to do, I'm assuming, what he loves and what he's good at. So that's good that he got his practice back. Most of these siblings are doing better now. They're still healing, but there's still a lot of work to do because it's incredibly fresh what happened to them, even if a little bit more than a decade has happened. As passed, it's still quite fresh. So they're just still healing, and he is somewhere in a mental institute, hopefully never seeing the outside air again.
Is Christina back with her husband, or
yes, everyone is back together. Guylaine and Jean Marchand are remarried. They were married on the same day that they married the first time, which I thought was pretty sweet. I'm pretty confident that Christine remarried as well. There's a silver lining to it. Of course, there's a few of the younger generation that has had a rough go. I know that one of them still lives in England and he is having a very rough time. I think he just works in a fast food chain and just trying to work through life. I mentioned one of the younger adults that got married and then got pulled away from this marriage to go back into the cult. If I remember correctly, now she's back to England. She remarried and she's just living a very simple life. But I don't know that she's fully healed from that either, because she just kind of ran away and she may not have contacts with her family anymore. So there's,
and that's fine. I think, and I think that's fine because everybody heals in their own way.
Yeah, that's true.
As long as they are in the right path, I think that's all that matters. Yeah. Although I'm not happy about the sentencing that madman got.
That feels like nothing. It really does. Yeah. To this day, Christine that was tortured, she still has a limp from that. Like she did not recover fully from that abuse and torture. That's just so sad. And I believe the matriarch, Guillemette, like the grandmother, I think she passed away in 2010. So to think that the last 2 decades of her life were just in so much misery, I hope she got some peace and rest, in
towards
the
the
last
end.
decade
Yeah.
or so, because nobody deserves to have so much stress, and just she literally saw her family fall apart and
True.
just
True.
losing everything. Their beloved castle, their community they were so close to, their reputation. So yeah, it's tough. They have written a bunch of books. If you're interested, please do check them out. There's a TV show that's called, I believe, so it's in French, but the English translation is Diabolical. And I think you should be able to find either a dubbed or a subtitled version of it if you're interested. There's a bunch of documentaries. What was that?
Did you say it was on Netflix?
I don't think that it's on Netflix. I don't think so. It's quite old
Well, if I
now.
can find it dubbed, I'm very interested.
That would be so
You'll
cool
have
if
to
it was
check on
dubbed.
YouTube first.
Yeah. I'll do a live dub. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah, I think it was made in 2016 or 2014. So it's I'm not entirely sure that there will be a dub, but maybe. And yeah, there's a bunch of very cool books. I do recommend OKI's video on YouTube. It's a 5-parter. I think they're each between 15 and 20 minutes. Check him out. It's very easy to watch or listen to if you're doing some chores around the house. I was also reading an article from the Crime Wire that was pretty good source of information as well. So yeah, that's about all I have. And I was pretty grim, but I tried to be lighthearted.
That was extremely detailed. I can't wait for this episode to go up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I went deep. And that wasn't even all of it. But I went deep. Thank you guys for pulling up with me tonight. I know I talk a lot and I talk fast, so thank you for putting up with me.
No, I think, but yeah, that was a very sad one, and not a happy ending. But
not really a satisfying one, I agree. I think the only silver lining is that everybody were married and everybody's healing, but beyond that.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he got off pretty easy.
Yeah.
that he did.
Well, since this was your episode, do you want to sign us off?
Oh, now I feel special. Where's my Freemason threat? Well, thank you everybody for listening to me now. I hope that it was a good episode and I hope that you had a good time. Thank you to the audience as well. And please remember, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird.